Friday night, you're at a high school football game. The energy is electric, everyone's excited.
Yeah.
But then the cheers, they're drowned out by the sound of gunshots.
Oh, wow.
It happened in North College Hill, Ohio, just last week.
Right.
And it's got everyone talking about safety at these school events. I mean, these are supposed to be family events, community events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, it really shakes you to your core,
Yeah.
right? Like, you think about a football game that's supposed to be about school spirit and just like a shared passion. And then when something like that happens, it just makes you wonder about, like, are any public spaces safe?
Right. Exactly.
It's really unsettling.
It is a really heavy topic. And you've come to the right place because we are diving deep into this shooting today. The facts, the context, all of it.
Let's do it.
So we can really get a grasp on what it reveals about keeping our schools and communities safe.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. What exactly happened last Friday night?
Well, the shooting took place on September 20th during a game in North College Hill, Ohio. And a crucial detail is that it happened outside the stadium. It happened in the parking lot.
Outside the stadium. See, that's already unsettling to me, right? Because you think if anything, security would be tightest at the entrances, right?
Exactly. It really shatters the perception of where we expect these things to happen, which just makes it all the more unnerving.
Right.
So a student athlete from Woodward Career Technical High School was shot. Now, details about their condition haven't been released yet, but we know they were hospitalized.
Okay, so we don't know about motive at this point. Have they released any information about a suspect or a person of interest?
Not yet. The who and the why are still a mystery, which unfortunately is often the case in the initial hours after an event like this.
Right, of course. And here's where it gets even more disturbing, okay? This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the second shooting near this very same stadium this month.
Yeah, you're right. Another shooting occurred on September 6th, also during a game. Thankfully, that time, no injuries were reported, but 2 shootings in such a short time frame, that's a red flag.
Beyond concerning, yeah. And the statement from North College Hill's principal, Eugene Blaylock Jr., I think really highlights just the depth of this problem. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I feel absolutely helpless, but I acknowledge that we cannot control the actions of those who choose to engage in harmful behavior."
Wow. That statement right there, I feel absolutely helpless. That just speaks volumes. I mean, it's got to be so frustrating.
Right.
And it's not just him, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure a lot of community leaders, educators, parents, they're probably feeling this way too, this sense of, like, what can we even do?
Right, like his hands are tied. He's responsible for all of these students.
Yeah, exactly.
And he can only do so much. And then later in that statement, he goes on to talk about the emotional scars and trauma that this will leave behind. I mean, even if you weren't physically hurt in this shooting, you can't deny the psychological impact that it has.
Absolutely. That fear, the anxiety, like that feeling of safety just being completely shattered.
Yeah.
Those are deep wounds, and they're going to last long after the sirens are gone, after the news cameras leave. It's just another example of community trauma and how these things just ripple outward.
It's heartbreaking, When you think about the long-term impact on these kids and their families, their community, it really makes you wonder, like, what can we even do? How do we prevent this from happening again?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. Like the principal deciding to suspend games at the stadium. I mean, that just shows how much of a priority safety is right now. But it also highlights the limitations of these kinds of measures.
Right, because how do you find that balance between being secure but also, like, welcoming, especially at a high school football game?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wants metal detectors and armed guards at a Friday night football game.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the reality of what's happening. There's been a lot of talk, actually, even in those Reddit threads we were looking at, about how effective security measures actually are. Like some people, they think that metal detectors at every entrance is the answer.
Yeah, that seems to be like the go-to solution after something like this happens. But is that really realistic?
Well, it's not as simple as it sounds. Metal detectors, they're expensive, first of all, to install and to maintain. And then you have to think about the logistics, like the bottlenecks they would cause getting into the game, people waiting in these long lines. It could be a mess.
Yeah.
And then, I think most importantly, it gives people this false sense of security. Like if that's the only thing you're doing, it doesn't address the other vulnerabilities.
So what are we supposed to put, like, a police officer On every corner. I saw some people talking about that in the Reddit thread, too, about increasing police presence at the games.
Yeah, and that's another one of those things where it's not a simple yes or no. I mean,
Mm.
sure, more police might deter someone from doing something, but there's no guarantee. And then on the other hand, it might make some students feel uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
you know, like they're being profiled.
Yeah, for sure.
And that creates a whole other set of problems. It seems like we're just addressing the symptoms here and not actually getting to the root of the problem.
And that's where community involvement comes in, right?
Yes.
I feel like I saw that a lot in the Reddit thread, this idea that parents and mentors, community leaders, they need to be more present,
Yeah,
more engaged.
absolutely. I think that's a huge part of it. Real security, true security, it goes beyond the physical stuff,
Mm.
the barriers, the law enforcement. It's about building a community where people feel supported, where they're vigilant, but also like intervening early when they see someone struggling.
So how do we actually do that? What does that look like?
It means having more adults at these events, not just as spectators, but actually being present, engaging with the students. It means creating spaces where these kids feel safe, talking about their problems, and actually getting help when they need it. We have to address the root causes here.
Which are?
Poverty, lack of opportunity, the lack of mental health resources. I mean, we can do a whole other deep dive on that.
It's about looking at the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
putting a Band-Aid on the problem.
Exactly. These things don't just happen in a vacuum, right? They're symptoms of these huge societal issues, and those are things we have to tackle together.
And this incident, I mean, as awful as it is, it's sparking this conversation at a national level now. It's making headlines everywhere.
Yeah, it's not just a local story anymore. This is a problem everywhere. Gun violence in this country.
It's an epidemic,
Yeah.
and it always reignites this debate about gun control.
Right. And it's such a divisive issue.
It feels like there's no middle ground sometimes.
Yeah. And you see that in those Reddit threads too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got people who are like, we need stricter gun laws, like yesterday. And then you've got other people saying, no, it's about mental health. We got to address the mental health crisis. And then there's this whole other group saying, hold on, this is about social inequality. This is about poverty and lack of opportunity. It's like, where do you even begin?
And that's the thing, isn't it? There's no easy answer. It's all these things.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It's overwhelming, to be honest. I mean, remember that quote from the principal, I feel absolutely helpless. I think a lot of people probably feel that way right now.
Yeah. But that's why we do this, right?
This is deep, dark.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, like you always say. We have to understand these nuances, the different sides of the argument. That's how we get some of our power back.
By being informed and staying engaged.
Exactly. We can't just let these tragedies become another headline, another statistic.
We can't become numb to it. It's too important. So, as we wrap up here, you said earlier that it's about creating a culture of support and vigilance. But how do we do that? How do we make sure that places like high school football games, these places that should be fun, they should be about community, how do we make sure that they stay safe for everyone?
It starts with each of us.
Yeah.
Staying informed, staying engaged, and not letting these conversations die down. We have to be brave enough to ask those difficult questions, to really challenge what we think we know, and to work together to actually make things better.
It's a long road.
It is. But we got to start somewhere.
That's so true. Well, this has been an incredibly impactful conversation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We'll be back next week with another important topic. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.